clean side of the road today for Van Gisbergen.
250 kilometres to come. Instalment number 2 of the NTI Townsville 500, and we're into it. Great jump initially by Di Pasquale. Can he cover and move across on Waters, or is Waters going to sneak it back up the inside? Davison, though, has dropped the clutch beautifully. He's arguing the case, and I think he might have jumped into second. Van Gisbergen sweeping in from the outside. It's going to be tied at 2.
Van Gisbergen's right out wide. He was lucky to get away with that. He was the widest car. So it looked like Davison was going to escort them out there, and he's lost more ground there. Scott Pye's been able to get by. Oh, they're all in. Scott Pye's been hit. He's actually turned right back around, and they all missed him. That's an absolute miracle. Oh, man. Is that Davison or Di Pasquale? One of them straight in the fence.
I think it's Will. So he was tangled in all that. There was contact on the exit of turn 3. And he lives to fight another day and get that car out of there. But the Pye car is damaged again. And we've got
continue onto the circuit, please.
James Courtney racing down the inside here with a yellow flag, but he spotted it now. So the safety car boards are out. Our timing monitor has gone yellow, and the BP Ultimate safety car is now out. And Scott Pye stranded in the middle of the circuit in the new line entry. Charlie Schwerkott will have his head in his hands seeing that car damaged again.
We'll try to get to the bottom of that, because you could hear Will Davison over the radio complaining Scott Pye was part of the cause there. This is Will Davison now limping this car home. It ended up in the tyres there at turn 5.
There was a fair bit of tripping over each other and fumbling at turn 2, and then the manifest of it all was up at turn 3, where the trip over actually did occur. So there's tyres at the ready for Will Davison, who's inbound, but there could well be more damage with the car, so they'll have a long, hard look at it. Now's the time. They're protected by the safety car. They can afford a few seconds to have a good long look, because it'll take a moment to be able to clear this vehicle off the track. So there's more, I think, than just a tyre involved in this.
Drove me straight in the fence. No clue, these guys.
So Will Davison, pretty animated on the radio, said he got driven straight into the fence.
Right, okay, got you there. Coming in.
So he needs to blow off that steam as they now get to work technically. So right front off, and they'll have a good look around there to see what else is involved from a damage point of view. And they'll tape up that front air dam. So on first glimpse, it looks like everything's okay under the right front corner of that car.
Good here. We've got a tyre on. Bit of time. Should be good here.
That's going to rub on the tyre, that front bumper, for sure. So the bit of corrective surgery.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. Clear out.
Well, they got away with it by the look.
Okay, Phil, he's at turn 5. Phil's at turn 5.
And you can see that Garth Tander's down there, so he got an eyeful of what was going on, so I'm sure we'll get an update shortly from Garth as well. So they've patched up the right front corner of that car. They've put a fresh Dunlop hard tyre in the right front corner. Hopefully it's not too bruised in the steering arm or in the suspension geometry to get away with it. Meantime, on the flatbed truck, the Newline car is about to be dragged out of the way.
I'll tell you what, when we get the replays, you will not believe how close Van Gisbergen was going in the fence at turn 2. He was the widest car, and they were all firing down the inside. Let's take a look.
So nice drop of the clutch and away by Anton Di Pasquale. And Will Davison made a very rapid start as well. So Cam immediately had to start to cover from Will. And you can see that Pye's on the inside there. It was very tight by the time they got down to turn 2. And then there's no room on the outside between Pye and Davison. A bit hard to see all of the detail from that angle, but there's how he didn't get cleaned up, Scott Pye, by the rest of the pack here. And based on his recent luck, you would have expected him to. So this is the view from Cam Waters off the front row of the grid. So he didn't get the best jump. That's Anton on the front left corner. Here comes Will Davison.
And watch the lunge. Watch him move to the inside. So Cam fires down the inside. It's dirty, no grip. He then runs Will wide, right out to the fence. So that's where the games commence. That's why Will was complaining that he ran him out there. But this is going to tell the story. So off turn 3, little bump, little bump, little bump against the fence, and then contact between Will and Scott turned the Newline Commodore around.
So did Scott bump off the top of the curb and then the squeeze, or did the squeeze just occur naturally? So this is the view from Shane's car. So I spotted him and he was taking the wide approach, but that didn't work as soon as Will got the hip and shoulder from Cam and moved him across. So we're looking now at Scott Pye to the right from Shane Van Gisbergen's car. This might tell a bit more of the story. Scotty gets up there. Yeah, he did hit the curb, and that's what fired it out there. And then there's no space on the left-hand side. It's actually smashed the left rear corner of the Newline car as well.
Gee, how lucky was the series leader not to get caught up in it?
This is Mostert. So Chaz is trying to be racy on the outside of Shane, so he's going to give us a great view of this as well. There just was not space out there.
And how lucky is Shane not to get caught in that? And Will Davison ended up hitting that left-hand wall that popped him out. So that was the contact that you spoke of, and there he goes straight in at turn 5 with the tyre damage. The right-hand front tyre was deflated by the time he got there. So lights are out. We finally had the BP Ultimate Safety Car. It's had a run. It's had a lot of running. It's had no running for us.
I was priming it a bit, but yeah, that's right. I said it earlier, it needs a 100,000 K service, but not for the supercars. All right, so we're going to go racing again in just a tick. So the order at the moment is Di Pasquale, Waters, Van Gisbergen, and Courtney Mostert. That's our top 5. Will Davison's gone back out there and rejoined the group. And we're going to be missing in action Scott Pye. That car's on the flatbed truck and unfortunately heading back to the garage. Got a green flag to get back underway once more. We've got 85 laps remaining when they cross the line this time. A long, long way to go. And that might set the tone of the day. I sense that it's going to be a very racy and argumentative afternoon. Waters has a peek down the inside. No room down there for him as Di Pasquale covers. That's the whole field getting through that very trickily shaped turn 2 complex.
Waters was aggressive straight away. He was having a little look. And you might find that he's incentivised to do it down at 11 if he gets a good run off the complex at 7, 8, 9.
Taking a bit of pressure off himself, Anton, just through the S's, this time through 7 and 8. Remember, these tyres still haven't fully come up to temperature or pressure, which makes the cars a handful right there through turn 10. Down the inside, I think Randle's just actually made a move on Mostert. He has. So he's gone blazing straight down the inside at turn 11. Nice job, Thomas Randle. He's actually showing on the computer timing as having a super soft on the car. I didn't spot that in the declarations, and he's got the light on. I didn't see that in the bulletin that was issued pre-race.
It wasn't, because it was his teammate. It was Jake Kostecki who was listed with that tyre on.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on it. We'll try and get an answer for you, but he's definitely put that move on, as I said, and he's put a move on James Courtney as well. So Thomas Randle's on fire out there at the moment, blazing. Meantime, no further action. Lap 1, turn 3 incident from Motorsport Australia Race Control is the word. And Thomas Randle showing a huge clip of speed out there in the Castrol entry.
And he has got the orange light in the windscreen too, so it is confirmed that he's on that tyre, and that wasn't advised in the paperwork that we had before the race. It was his teammate that was listed, so I'm not sure what the protocol is there, but you can see the level of grip the super soft tyre generates, and he goes straight down the inside of Shane Van Gisbergen. Nice move. No contact. Shane knows he's on the soft tyre and didn't try to force his way in at the turning point. He just gave him room. Thomas now on a charge to his teammate Cam Waters.
I've gone back and checked. It was actually on the paperwork. So I got bad information on that earlier on. Apologies. So Thomas Randle is showing on the super soft tyre, and hence the reason why he's blazing through the field at the moment. So he's now putting pressure on the back of Cam Waters. He's up into 3rd position, so he's 1.6 seconds off the lead. And that is great confidence builder for this young guy who earlier today enjoyed his first ever top 10 shootout appearance. Look how much of the road they use on the run up against the concrete wall there into turn 3, having a big crack. So Di Pasquale's got control by nearly a second over Cam Waters at the moment. That little bit of fresh air will serve him well at the moment to just be able to drive at his own rhythm and not to take too much energy out of the tyres or the brakes.
There's been a couple of people that have made really serious ground. Fullwood's made 7 spots.
Here we go down the inside.
Down the inside, nice move again.
Waters is well aware of the grip advantage that Randle's got. So only 1 car in the field. 3 yesterday started on the super soft tyre. 1 car today, and it's that Castrol entry of Randle, who, if he keeps going at the current rate, is going to be able to climb past Anton Di Pasquale.
And Nick Percat's up 9 positions from the back of the grid now.
Turn 3 for the time, turn 3.
Nick's comment earlier on was that that car in qualifying felt like it had second-hand tyres on it. He said it just did not feel at all like they had fresh Dunlop tyres on it, but clearly it's not working too badly at the moment as Slade looks down the inside here on Jack LeBrock and actually makes a nice effective move into 11th position, but the switchback is on. Jack might have him back in the other direction when they get down here to turn 3.
And Jack's been one of the real losers. He's lost 4 positions in that opening exchange. He may have been caught in all that kerfuffle with Scott Pye and Will Davison, because remember he qualified so well, but there was a fair bit going on in turn 2 and turn 3.
I reckon the reason why Jack's battling is the back of that car looked very loose through turn 6 that time, so he was skating, and he's skating wide again now, so he's vulnerable. He's the cork in the bottle now. Nice. As Tim Slade gets underneath him, together with Andre Heimgartner will have a crack when they get down here to turn 11, so he was skating a lot there. He's got a lot of rear damage as well, which probably hurt the diffuser on the car and that rear skirt. And you've got Will Brown giving him some hurry along because he does not need any more rear bumper damage, but he's getting a bit of it at the moment. Heimgartner up the inside of Brown. This could be messy when they get to the final corner. And Heimgartner has a look, gets the squeeze, and you've got to be so careful of steering damage when all that's going on. Look at that. It's a slab of supercars out of turn 13.
Well, it's not over because the slipstream, Will Brown's got the slipstream on Jack LeBrock. Heimgartner's one back and one wide, so he's going to try to turn back in, and down the inside there was going to be, when we get the next shot, there'll be cars spinning. Oh, how'd they get away with that? That was Jake Kostecki down the inside of the whole lot. Have a look at that for a gaggle of cars.
It's the wacky races on the one run to turn 3 here. There's cars everywhere. Look at them trying to sort it out. They're just pushing and shoving and trying to sort their way. Meantime, Randle's gone to the lead over Di Pasquale, but this is an unbelievable block of congestion at the moment. And you've got Macaulay Jones, Mark Winterbottom getting a serve, Jake Kostecki as well. They're in the grass, they're in the gravel, they're on the curbs. Some of them are on the asphalt, not many.
Well, I think 25.
Oh, that was on for young and old down there. They were playing for keeps,
Right,
boys.
Boxes you need to.
Oh, I love that stuff. That was really wild. They were alongside. They were 3 abreast going into turn 7.
Well, they were 3 abreast at one point into turn 2 as well. It never ends well down there. So Thomas has been able to get the job done with that extra pace. He's now 3/4 of a second clear, and Jake Kostecki has come to the lane. He's got some damage in the tradie Mustang. Whoa, another little touch-up. Percat just gets into the right rear of Jack LeBrock and now clears him on the run towards, well, he doesn't. In fact, I reckon he surrendered that based on what happened.
I think he did.
And steering damage for Jake Kostecki. So Nick Percat, who's done a lot of supercar racing, wise enough to realise that it was better to actually just step back out of that one and have another crack. But LeBrock looks like he's got a pretty evenly balanced car out there at the moment.
He does.
Look at the rear bumper on the tradie entry of Kostecki.
I think he was battling to even steer it into the garage with the amount of damage that he's incurred.
It's the new short wheelbase Mustang.
Yeah, exactly.
Down the inside comes Shane Van Gisbergen, critical pass, and that was very nicely executed. Shane's been really good, into 11, out of 11 through 12, and setting up that move. Their braking stability is very, very good, and it starts by coming out of that complex of corners prior at 11 and 12 with tremendous traction. He's done a fine job to be able to slice that Red Bull Apple Racing entry straight up the inside, and that's very important now. We need to keep an eye on that because he's right under the back of Anton Di Pasquale, and Van Gisbergen has just done a fastest first sector in the race, and he's done that in a lap where he's passing other traffic. Bunnings Trade power pass. Check this out. So thought about it and then changed direction onto the dirty side of the racetrack. Normally when you do that, it makes you so slow on the exit that you can be vulnerable down the other end. So look how dirty that part of the road is, and still gets the power up and fired out the other side. So he was able to get away with it nicely. He's done a personal best now in the mid-sector on this subsequent lap, and that's moved him up into 3rd spot. So Cam Waters down into 4th. Thomas Randle's our leader from Anton Di Pasquale. This is the battle now for 2nd and 3rd. In fact, that block of cars, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Century Batteries chopper shows us the story. Meantime, behind them is Mostert, Courtney, Feeney, Reynolds forward, and Kostecki. So Brody Kostecki travelling along nicely after the engine change in the Boost Mobile entry car number 99. So he's making pretty fair progress out there at the moment. Mark, you were pointing at winners and losers before. There's a few people that have made some solid ground. I think Bryce Fullwood has actually done a pretty decent job, hasn't he?
He has. He's up 7 spots. And Nick Percat, who's been the winner of the arms race from the back of the field there, he's up at 11 positions. Nice job.
So Scott Pye can't believe what's going on in his universe at the moment. So Bruin Beasley just talking to him, Charlie Schwerkold alongside in the Team 18 garage. So he's going to be distraught. And talked to him on the grid about what's been happening in the recent past. He was involved in a very heavy incident with Jack LeBrock in Western Australia, and then he was involved as an unwitting participant in what happened up at the hairpin turn 6 at Hidden Valley when James Courtney got shoved off the road and went across the grass and KO'd that car. And now, once again, it's on the back of a flatbed truck, and it'll be heading back to Melbourne for corrective surgery. So just a moment of peace out there at the moment. 77 laps remain. They're on lap number 12. And Percat, as you say it, Mark, he's come up now into 13th. There are a couple of other guys that we need to just keep a bit of an eye on in the back of the field as well. Will Brown down in 17th. See whether or not he can make any ground here. James Golding, a report on him. He's sitting in 19th position. And Will Davison, who had to go all the way to the back of the field, is up in 22nd now. He's 21 seconds off the lead. You can get off the hook in these circumstances if you do get another safety car.
It's not the end of the day if you can use the strategy right. It's a bit of a free kick, obviously, for so many of those others that have been able to stay out of trouble. So Thomas Randle on the super soft tyre leads by 2 seconds. The effective lead of the race is the hard tyre battle between Anton De Pasquale, Shane Van Gisbergen and Cam Waters. Cam Waters, the job now for Cam is not to lose too much ground on Van Gisbergen. You can see in the shot there, Anton, it sort of goes in swings and roundabouts in terms of the characteristics of the cars and what area of the track they're good at. Anton's car's very good through turn 4 and 5. It's not Lula Lacroix this weekend, it's Mark Fanning, and the way that the Red Bull Ampol Racing Commodore, the way it stops and turns at the tighter stuff is probably better than the Shell V-Power Mustang. So as we pick up on the shot from the back of Anton and now on board with Van Gisbergen, we'll get a really good look at the balance of the car that's effectively leading.
Catch a glimpse of that water in the background. You can see how still it is out there today. The scene from above Reed Park, the NTI Townsville 500. It's the second of the 2 instalments today for 250 kilometres, and that's the snapshot. Our leader is Thomas Randle. He's the only driver out there at the moment on the softer of the 2 Dunlop tyres, and he's put it to very good use. He qualified inside the top 10. He's skipping away now with a margin of almost 2 seconds over Anton De Pasquale, and Shane Van Gisbergen recently made a nice move on Cam Waters to move it up into 3rd. So De Pasquale, Van Gisbergen, Waters are all watching each other like hawks at the moment in the early phase of the race. Rihanna?
Charlie Schwerkold, teammate down here. I'm not sure if you have any words left, but your point of view from the incident.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal, obviously. I don't know, Scotty was there, and, you know, he said Will bumped him off, but there wasn't a lot of room for either of them, so it's one of those racing incidents that I think, but really disappointing. Had a great start, and it just, yeah, gutted for the team. Now we're going to go and repair it again. That's another DNF, which is not good.
I know the disappointment and just the devastation you have, but can you clear up Mark Winterbottom? I knew there was a couple of question marks about him. Is he okay out there?
Yeah, no, he's good. He's fine. He's just a bit of a parachute there with someone bashed into the back, you know, when you start down the back there a bit, and he's big bash, so he's got a parachute to drag around to a little bit slow, but he'll be fine.
Hopefully he'll be fine. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
2.2 second gap now, Randle over De Pasquale, but a very tight margin of only 1.5 seconds covers Anton, Shane and Cam. 2nd, 3rd and 4th. We're spotting Tim Slade there at the moment and jumping on board the Cool Drive entry. He's right behind Brody Kostecki, fresh engine in that car, and having a sneak down the inside at 11. Dirty side of the road, but done. Sometimes the crisscross is on here. Brody's actually on the radio talking while that manoeuvre was being made. So he's talking about requiring a change. So I don't think his car balance is too good. So George Commons is his engineer. So they're trying to think about making some changes at the stop. Heimgartner's seeking some clarification as well. He's down the order a little bit, so that car doesn't appear to be great. So this is Jake Kostecki back out now.
So
I'll top her up and send it.
There to go. Right, off duty.
And I was going to say before, Heimgartner has shown no pace from 12th. No gain at all in that zone of the field. And Brodie was quite animated. The last thing he said was, the rear of the car is so bad it's undrivable. So there was a few other expletives in the middle of all that. I tightened it up now.
Good. 2.8 seconds Randle over Di Pasquale, and still 1.5 seconds covering Anton, Shane and Cam in second, third and fourth. I'm watching that like they are closely, because that's where the action is from a strategy play and standpoint here, to see how those teams are eyeing each other off at the moment. Mostert there in 5th position.
Sorry, mate, repeat that. You say floppy. Going left, the fly going forward. Understood.
So some conversation between Chaz Mostert and Adam de Borre. So James Courtney's rolling along nicely here at the moment, Mark. It's been a decent opening for him. This is the car that we were just talking about, and Heimgartner was actually barely able to pull that car up. Then he had it on the braking limit from the dirty side of the road, and he got underneath Brodie Kostecki. So this is just a reconfirmation of his discomfort with the balance of that Boost Mobile entry at the moment. So, and he's on the radio again. Yeah, I'll have to make a change to the car and replace the steering wheel button for the radio, because he'll wear it out. I don't think he's too thrilled at the moment.
No, he's not giving the most positive review of the car at the moment. If he was doing the Cars Guide thing, it would be a very low star rating.
On board with James Courtney down here at turn 11. So at this point of the race now, and you can even hear it, sense it when you look over James' shoulder, it's about just protecting those tyres coming off those low-speed corners in second gear, where bursting into wheel spin's very easily done.
I think the interesting part for me now is Thomas Randle has, although he's leading and he's on the super soft tyre, he hasn't tried to extend that lead. So what you might do with it is drive it back to the pace of the cars that are on the hard tyre, take it off earlier than we saw yesterday, because remember we saw Slade do 30 laps. So maybe take it off at about 20 laps, put it out the back, cross them over, repressure them, and try to run it again at the end. So try to do a double dose on that tyre. That's probably part of the equation here. Jack?
Yeah, guys, I thought I'd quickly come down to Boost Mobile Erebus and have a quick chat to Brodie's engineer, George Commons, and he confirmed to me that he got a bit of damage to the suspension and the bodywork that we've seen in that first lap crash damage with Prix and Davis, and so he's not sure what the damage is exactly, but the balance is really bad as a result of it. So they're going to try and fix it in the pit stop if they can, but it's a bit hard when you don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, diagnosing it is a whole nother deal, and you don't have much time in that pit stop. You can be covered a little bit by fuel. That's all done and dusted inside 30 seconds, well and truly. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thanks for the update there, Jack. So he's just drifting down the order at the moment. Brodie's in 12th position. So we've now got a 3.7 second margin, Randle over Di Pasquale. And critically, the battle between Anton, Shane and Cam's now 2.1 seconds with Waters at the back of that little gang. If anything, he's starting to drift into Mostert here, who's beginning to drift into Courtney, who's beginning to drift into Feeney.
It's a lot of drifting.
There's a fair bit of drifting going on out there. So that's sort of telling me that Cam at the moment may not have an ideal balance going, but we'll just keep an eye on this. We'll just watch carefully. But that block of time between second, third and fourth was static 1.5 seconds for a bunch of laps, and it's just started to open up a little bit now. We'll see.
And that's what I said before. The job for Cam Waters now is to stay as close as he can possibly stay to Van Gisbergen, because the pace on the soft tyre yesterday for Cam Waters was very good. So what you want to do is have a similar arms race and almost cover him, do what they do, understand what the policy was yesterday. Remember, very long fuel stop for Van Gisbergen, 100 litres they put on in the first stop yesterday. which meant they only put 40 on in the second stop.
One of the impressive things about Shane's repertoire, when you look at the way he achieves the speed, I was just watching from the rear bumper of Anton's car in the braking area into turn 11. Pay attention to how much space and how much road that Van Gisbergen uses. So on the exit of turn 10 and down to 11 there before, there's nothing. I mean, there's not another millimetre to play with down there. So what he's trying to do is try and keep as much load out of the tyres and open up the corner radius as much as he possibly can. And he's doing it there as well. The way he hops over the curb at 3 is about changing the shape of the corner to satisfy the mid-corner pace and try and not hurt the tyre. He's been a real specialist at this. And I think he's continued to perfect that craft in the last couple of years, and it's served him very well. So this will give us a study of understanding where the strengths and weaknesses lie. This is the area that I was talking about, Mark. Look where he is. He's out on that little concrete verge. He's right against the concrete wall, and it just changes the shape of the corner ever so much, and he does make ground in that process. Makes a little bit of ground under brakes, a little bit of ground in the mid-corner, but he hasn't been quite as strong coming off the corner, and he spoke about that earlier in the day, that getting off the corner and down the straights in this early launch out of the corner has been a little more challenging, and he was in a vigorous battle yesterday with Heimgartner, and we could see the differences between the cars. You tend to get that visual effect as well on the run in versus the run out. It can be a little misleading, but what it does do is it gives us an idea of how they're behaving. See, his line through turn 2 exit there, very, very different to Anton's. Macaulay Jones and James Golding at it here. Golding's car number 31 on the left side, the Subway green entry. And Macaulay's got the run through turn 1. James up on the outside. It's about to be a three-way fight, and that is Will Davison getting down the inside.
Nicely done.
And skittling both.
Nicely done. Nice presence of mind. Lucky they didn't have the little fast food bump between the Pizza Hut Commodore and the Subway Commodore. Oh, that was close again. That was really close on the way out of turn 3. In fact, I think James just rested the front of the car on the back of Macaulay's on the way down to turn 5. One of the things that you've been talking about the whole weekend is the track evolution. Weirdly, today, it's all slower. So it's all slower. So, yes, you were talking about the heat before, but the degradation is roughly 30% worse than yesterday. So when you look at the way that the race is going to be run, and we always talk about the street circuit, rubber down, all the things that are nice about that that make it better, it's actually worse than before. A lot worse, considerably worse than yesterday. Which is good, because we're going to see different strategies. People are going to think on their feet. It's one of the great things about car racing, and especially supercars racing with different formats, is it's the ultimate of you've got to play the chess game, but you've got to think on your feet. So today, the guys will be talking about where's the car, how are we going, what's the policy around our stops today, all the things that are important as we go on board with James Golding and we watch his foot skills in the Subway Commodore. But it's really important to put all this together and then go, okay, we've got a different set of conditions today. 30% worse degradation, what do I do to counter it? Really important.
67 laps remaining. We're riding with James Golding here in the Subway entry in the Peter Gibberis car. Change of driver for that car now for the back end of the season. He gives that brake pedal a little safety tap. He's tucked in behind Macaulay Jones on the run down turn 11. And in behind all of them is Chris Pither. So you could comfortably order a Super Supreme, a foot long and a large Coke to go with the move at turn 13. Cool drive entry is in, Tim Slade, and looks like a standard stop for their four wheels and tyres. Couldn't see any other changes going on there. They're just waiting for the cue now to pluck the fuel.
Go.
So I'm interested, you've just raised the prospect of the tyres being hurt more today and the lap speed down.
Yep.
And there's not a logical reason for it. It's 23.3 degrees out there at the moment, so it's no hotter than yesterday, but I suspect it could be to do with some of the other activity on the track in the last 5 or 6 hours. Curious, that one. Let's go to Jack.
Well, I'm down here with Tim Edwards, team principal for Tickford Racing. Thomas Randle doing a great job on the super softs. Can you tell me and a few of my friends when you might be coming in to get those tyres off the car?
No, but no, in all seriousness, the goal is to try and get to at least 25 laps. Anything after that is really a bonus. So, you know, he's only 3 laps away from our target, and he's still lapping faster than the hard runners behind him. So he's going okay at the moment.
And your other 2 drivers, James Courtney, Cameron Waters, doing a pretty good job on a different strategy, obviously starting on the hards. When will we see them chuck the soft tyres on?
Look, I think you'll see most cars coming in the next 5 to 10 laps, and they're both just planning some tune-ups to the car at the moment to improve it a bit. They're not quite happy with the balance.
Okay, mate, there's a bit of pit stop activity about to happen here. We'll let you go. All the best.
Cheers.
The spread between De Pasquale, Van Gisbergen and Waters is now 2.6 seconds, so that's steady. It sort of went from a step of 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, and now it's levelled out as we focus on Cam in 4th position. Been a very good, solid stint here from Thomas Randle. We really need to talk up, even though he's on the different tyre. You've still got to drive the car, you've got to drive it accurately, not make mistakes and hold your margin. He's got it out to 5 seconds. And we dip our hat. It's a young guy who's made his way into the sport. He's been Dunlop Super 2 champion. He's out there. He got into the shootout. He's leading a race. Well done, Thomas.
Absolutely.
We've heard Brodie Kostecki lighting up on the radio, giving feedback about his car. So I thought I'd grab Barry Ryan, team principal for Boost Mobile Erebus. What's going on with Brodie's car, mate?
Yeah, it looks like he's had the back punched in the opening laps, and he's lost a heap of rear aero. So we've derived a plan for the pit stop where we're going to try and make a rear ride height change and try and get the rear settled down for the rest of the race. So a bit hard to change the bodywork during the race, so we'll try and mechanically give it some more rear grip.
And there was an engine change for Brodie's car between qualifying and the race. That's okay?
Yeah, just there's a couple little dramas with the engine that we weren't sure on, so it's just safer to change it.
Thanks for the update, Baz.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Keeping an eye on him there in car number 99. He's sitting in 12th position at the moment. Get an idea of just how much of a pounding the Petted Super Shock gets around here, together with the Dunlop tyre. So we're looking at the brake ducting and tubing there into the hub and the upright and the upper and lower wishbones on this car. And when the cars cloud over the curbs here, they take an enormous load. How they actually withstand it for the duration of a couple of hours of racing is a little bit of a miracle.
It's the left front looking back at the wishbones and the inside workings of the Petted Super Shock, etc.
This is actually quite telling, because you'll hear engineers frequently on the radio as you look at that tyre and the margin between the rim where the bead of the tyre is and under that crush right now in the braking area. You can imagine when it hasn't come up to roughly 30 psi, which is what it would be at the moment, might be 29, 30, 31 psi, perhaps a fraction more. Different teams have got different philosophies, but when they first go out on the racetrack, they're pressured down. So if you start belting over those concrete curbs when they've got no air pressure in them in relative terms, you can damage them quite badly. And we've seen a few tyres over the years that have actually been a little worse for it because of that. Now, you heard Garth Tander speaking with Barry Ryan before about the damage with that car. So that's the rear bumper, but part of the rear bumper is a thing we call the diffuser, which exits the air under the back of the car. And teams go to a lot of trouble to get the cleanest passage of air over and under the cars. And it makes a small contribution to the overall aero balance of the vehicle. So there could be something in that. 5.3 seconds gap. Randle to De Pasquale, 64 laps remaining, and the spread now between De Pasquale, Van Gisbergen and Waters just jumped out to 3.9 seconds. So Waters is dropping off the back of those guys, and Cam is now defending from Chaz Mostert. He's got Mostert 0.6 of a second behind. Heimgartner down the inside of Fullwood. This is for position 9, turn 11, did it pretty easily. So all of a sudden they've done something, or the track's evolved, or they've done something with car 8 that it's not been happy with at a point as well, because yesterday he was right in the game. Now Waters is in, so they've thrown the flag up with that car, because all of a sudden they started to lose contact with that group that they're racing. So what they get 26 laps into the race.
So hard tyres to go back on. And as you pointed out, they were really losing ground in the last 4 or 5 laps there.
Yeah, they're making a change. So that looks like a little ride height change.
Rear wheels are done, waiting for fuel and these fronts to go on. There's 10 seconds down, you've got 7 to go.
That's not good to have lost that ground to the key runners in that first stint.
It looks like from James Courtney's feedback yesterday, remember he said that they raised the front of the car? They're probably raising the front of that car there. That right height change I would think would be down the same direction from what Courtney revealed to us earlier today.
Yeah, we'll get the bandits in the pit lane to check on that for us.
We got any down there?
One or two. Brody in. I don't know whether they actually... I didn't see any changes on that car, but there might have also been a little variation with the incoming tyre pressure as well.
They're effectively going a lap down there. That's the leader, Thomas Randle, coming by. And as Brody makes his way down to turn 2, you'll see Anton Di Pasquale and Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, Anton's been able to fend off Shane. There's been 2 or 3 periods through the first 25 laps of the race where Shane looked like he was going to grab him. And Anton, again, right now, has just been able to move that out. That gap that you're seeing on track is just under 1 second. And as you can see there with those differentials in the green and red, there's very little between them in terms of pace. There's definitely a difference where the strengths and weaknesses are. The Shell V-Power Mustang they are the best at turn 5 and 6.
I heard them pitting Will Davison in the background a few moments ago as well, so they're laying up and standing by down there at the Shell V-Power Racing team. And I noticed that Brock Feeney's starting to attack the back of James Courtney now as well. And Waters has taken his stop and he's gone back out there. And I think when I last looked, he had a little bit of fresh air. So he's down at turn 2 at the moment, Cam Waters, and the next car is his teammate Jake Kostecki on the run to turn 5. So he's got hundreds of metres of his own racetrack at the moment, so he'll get a little bit of a benefit of that. They've made a change to the car, they've put some fresh rubber on it, it's fattened up with more fuel, but running on his own out there will probably now fend him off from what was an attack from Chaz Mostert and might get him back in touch with Shane Van Gisbergen. Guff's got more.
I'll just quickly update on Brody Kostecki. So they lowered the rear ride height for Brody. He was complaining that the car was slippery, sliding around in the rear, and he wanted more grip. The team said, we'll give you more grip, 4 brand new hard tyres for Brody Kostecki.
And the car of Cam Waters, Garth, totally the opposite. The front of the car, they lifted it up a little bit. Same thing, it was oversteer. It was sliding around in the rear. Lift the front up, takes away a little bit of that aero bite at the front, a little more measurable from the driver's seat.
Thanks for the update, Garth and Mark. So teams tackling similar problems in different ways. So calming the back of the car for Brody. Making a ride height change and lifting the front of Cam Waters' car as well. And you can see that Fullwood and Davison into the moment for compulsory stops. A lot of damage down the left-hand side of Will's car.
We've still got a bit to go. That's just over halfway there now, mate. 10 seconds.
2 compulsory stops in this race, so I think they're fat fueling Will Davison.
3 seconds, you'll be good to go on your drop.
Putting a lot of fuel on, a little bit like what happened yesterday. Van Gisbergen and Courtney now in as well. So Mostert's elevating up through the field. Thomas Randle's actually getting a decent run out of these tyres, MS. So Thomas's last lap was a 16.8, and he's now on the 29th lap in the cycle of these tyres. He's done a very good job in this opening stint.
Certainly has. And here's Van Gisbergen. Now look for what fuel load they put in this car today. It was 100 litres yesterday.
Now they just put 93 litres in Will Davison's car, by the way. A lot of fuel.
And I think that's as much today.
And it'll be 68 litres went into Shane's car then, James Courtney.
Go.
So the Snowy River Caravan's entry heading out now as well. 77 litres goes into Courtney's car. And the engineers and the strategists are plotting how long they want to stand still and who they want to pop out in between or where they want to try and pop out in the field, knowing that ultimately they've got to deliver 140 litres of fuel to the car. Di Pasquale now in as well. Hazelwood and Pither in. They've got to deliver that fuel to the car. They can deliver it how they please. So whether they want to do it as 80 and 60 or they want to do it as 70 and 70, they can do whatever they want. You're constrained by the capacity of the tank and the requirement to get from one end of the race to the other with around about 230 litres of BP Ultimate fuel. Here's Di Pasquale. And Heimgartner's in as well.
So I think Shane has actually short-filled compared to yesterday to cover off Waters.
Yes.
So that's the issue for Shane. He needed to make sure that he didn't go out behind Waters.
Waiting on fuel.
So that's proved a critical thing for Shane today.
3 seconds to go. You'll be good to go on your drop.
So he wasn't able to do exactly what he wanted to do. So short fill for Van Gisbergen. 68 plays 77. Here we go. Does he stay in front? So we need to see this now, and that's Anton De Pasquale on the cold tyre. Shane's going to try to do the crisscross, and he doesn't.
Has he got him? It's not quite done yet. And they are absolutely side by side, and then eventually De Pasquale has to yield. Now Randle is in. He got 30 laps out of the tyres, Mark. That was a fine effort. He's been in now for 15 seconds. So that leaves Mostert in the lead. So they're playing a different game with Mostert. Feeney's come in now as well. Continued progress through the field for Nick Percat. He's going to move up into second position here. Randle, his stop. Dunlop hard tyres at the ready.
That is a strategic mistake by Shell V-Power Racing today. That, straight up, is a massive mistake. Van Gisbergen hasn't got the supreme pace that he had yesterday versus the field. Anton had pace that was good enough. They needed to put enough fuel in to get out in front and leave him in front. So in terms of racecraft, that team decision just there is a very poor one.
Now, what will also be interesting is the Waters in that fresh air zone that he's operating in at the moment is the second fastest car on the racetrack last time out. So look at the rejoin going on here. So you've got Randle covering down the inside. Van Gisbergen rounds him up. De Pasquale's about to have a sniff here as well. And he makes it a desperate lunge out of turn 2. Oh, and Randle covers him all the way to the fence, but there's not a lot of space here. Can he get up? He gets the squeeze on the curb, side by side, and that's what happened earlier in the day with Davison and with Pye. And eventually Randle has to clear the throttle and drop back in behind. That was awkward.
It was very awkward. And Anton was blowing up Deluxe over the radio. He said, "Do not do that to me again."
Mostert now in. That's going to leave Percat in the lead. Here we go, car number 25. It's all going on out there at the moment. Meantime, Waters is pretty strong out there at the moment, mate, with good pace, and that means that the change to the car is probably better.
Exactly. So Waters is currently down at turn 11. And he's making ground.
Yeah, he took 77 litres of fuel, and Van Gisbergen took 68 litres of fuel.
Let's call it 10 litres difference as we get closer to the next stop.
Yeah, 2 and a bit seconds, 2 to 3 seconds difference in their fuel stop. So there's Mostert, there's Waters. So Waters has made real good. Now, they were battling nose to tail prior to Cam peeling off to come into the lane. So he's now put a chunk of time on him. It's effectively an undercut, but he might lose some of the benefit deeper into the race. Courtney's in behind Mostert, and then Slade as well in behind them, sitting in 11th.
Now, I hope Ludo Lacroix has taken out his travel insurance, because he'd be chucking stuff at his television in Europe right now. There'd be baguettes going everywhere in Europe, seriously, because he would be sitting there going, "What have you blokes done to my young Charger?"
Baguettes.
Baguettes. He's in France.
I get it.
He doesn't do croissants.
A little beret hissy fit. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm absolutely suggesting that.
Winterbottom's in. So Percat leads. Chunky margin over James Golding. So some people are running longer. Let's have a look at this replay of Anton De Pasquale and Thomas Randle getting stuck into it. This is the run to turn 3, forcing the issue down the right-hand side. And up over the curb goes De Pasquale, side by side, clunking and banging all the way up here to the next part of the racetrack. And eventually, after a bit of contact and a wriggle out the other side, it resolves in favour of De Pasquale. Whoa, that
Randle,
one.
you can't do that.
That could have actually disturbed the left rear corner of De Pasquale's car here as well, pretty significantly. So here he is up on the curb. Shane's cleared off. Bang, there's the first bit of contact. Watch this bit here. Watch the wheel work. Whoa, that was a lot of opposite lock to catch that. That was about as close as you dare to a rotate at high speed. Heimgartner wide down here at 2. Golding and Winterbottom are in the pit lane. In fact, Winterbottom just departing now. Will Davison's making a bit of ground back up the field. He's out of sequence. Nick Percat now in, leaves Lee Holdsworth in the lead of the race. So pretty much everybody other than Lethal now has stopped.
Nick Percat did a very good job prior to all those stops. He was up 14 positions. So very good performance by Nick from the back of the field. We know that his qualifying was disappointing, but his racecraft staying out of the way of all the early drama.
Really good. Okay, just waiting on tyres.
Very good.
Okay,
All right,
tyres,
so
a drink bottle.
pretty much at the end of the first period of card shuffling, and our leader is Shane Van Gisbergen.
And he got gifted that as a consequence of Shell trying to put a little bit too much fuel in, trying to be a little tricky, and that is going to be difficult for De Pasquale to make that ground up. But he's got to now get his head down and ensure that he stays as close to Shane Van Gisbergen as he possibly can. And we're going to also follow very closely as to what Cam Waters' pace is like. On the last lap, Mostert was actually the fastest car. The second fastest car was Will Davison, who's pressing on through the field at the moment after that early drama with Scott Pye. So we pick up on our leader, Anton De Pasquale, just 1.8 seconds in behind Van Gisbergen. So Shane
26 on the dash.
leads from Anton. Thomas Randle is the next car through, and then you'll see Cam Waters. So this is just a little opportunity to pick out where your favourite driver is. There's Chaz Mostert, just in behind is James Courtney. Jake Kostecki is out of the phase there. Slade, Feeney, Heimgartner, Reynolds forward, Brody Kostecki. So that will take you through to 12th position.
So just looking at the snapshot of the top 4 runners, Van Gisbergen came in on lap 28, took 68 litres. De Pasquale came in a lap later on 29 and took 66. So essentially, De Pasquale and Van Gisbergen are kind of on the same strategy, near enough. Car number 55, Thomas Randle, who's sitting third at the moment, came in on lap 30, took 69 litres, but he's on a different tyre strategy. Started on the super soft, he's gone to the hard, but he's out there with others also on the hard tyre at the moment, but the key players are yet to get onto their softer tyre. They'll get gain from that in the final stint of the race. And then in 4th position at the moment is Cam Waters. He stopped on lap 25, so they brought him in early to benefit from some undercut there. They've cleared him away from Mostert, but they put 77 litres on, so that's the first real departure. Call it 10 litres in your words there, Mark, from what they did with Van Gisbergen. So it's about 2 to 3 seconds worth of fuel difference, and there he is on screen at the moment, and he's coming up against the back of his own teammate. I imagine that he'll be able to clean him up pretty quickly. So that's the snapshot at the moment. 1.9 seconds gap from Van Gisbergen to De Pasquale. So this shouldn't be too tough for Waters here, who's in the championship battle at the moment. So he's sitting in 4th position coming into the race. Dropped a spot yesterday in the championship chase. 262 points is the gap between Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale. And Davison in 3rd, Waters in 4th, Mostert in 5th. And the margin between Van Gisbergen and Waters at the moment, Mark, is 6 seconds, and I'm just going to round it for the sake of the argument, call it 3 seconds different in fuel. So in real terms, there's 2 seconds between them in favour of Shane.
So you'll probably find here that when Cam gets himself organised and finds a suitable spot to find on the inside of Thomas Randle, that will be fine. And needs to just do it in a way that doesn't cost either of them too much pace, and that's exactly what he does. So actually Thomas is parked over on the inside.
Very gentlemanly.
He probably didn't need to do that to that extent.
He's actually got good pace out there at the moment, Thomas Randle. So he didn't look like he was giving too much away at all to Cam Waters in the preceding lap. So they've checked those positions around in the other direction there, and that gives Waters, importantly, some fresh air in the margin to De Pasquale. It's 4.3 seconds the gap at the moment. I'll keep an eye on it. So Van Gisbergen to Waters at the moment is 6.3 seconds. So everybody's done their first compulsory stop. And of those top 4 runners that we just talked about, It's the driver on screen there, Cam Waters, who took the most amount of fuel by around about 10 extra litres over the key players that are all around him in positions 1, 2 and 3. Chaz Mostert, kind of a 25, so slightly different strategy play for them today. So they came in on lap 31 for 75 litres of fuel. Tim Edwards, the CEO and the team principal, on screen for Tickford. He looks after the Monster Energy car of Cam Waters. Remember that they had a couple of very successful runs here at the back end of the second visit to Townsville last year. They had 2 victories on the Reed Park circuit. Nice little battle going on here at the moment between Slade and Feeney, 7th and 8th here, and this might be about to switch around. Tim can see him, gives him space, and Brock rocks on by.
Nice pass. Both cooperated well there. Tim didn't try to make it too difficult and didn't turn in on Brock. Brock was able to, over those bumps and the surface changes, get the car stopped nicely, and that was a nicely executed manoeuvre. So Van Gisbergen, Anton Di Pasquale, Cam Waters, Thomas Randle, Chaz Mostert. That's your first 5. The gap is 2.3 seconds.
.51 laps remaining. NTI Townsville 500 Reed Park circuit. We're in North Queensland this weekend and enjoying the second instalment of this endurance format this weekend. And our race leader, with now 50 to go as he crosses the line, is Van Gisbergen, 2.3 seconds over Anton Di Pasquale. And then it's another 4.5 seconds back to Waters. So the spread first to third is 6.9 seconds. And then we've got Thomas Randle, who went off on the first stint in a different tyre configuration to the others, and then Chaz Mostert in 5th. Bunnings Trade power pass, and it's a nice clean move by Brock Feeney down the inside of Tim Slade. Slade saw him coming in the cool drive entry and gave him a pile of space, and that was easily done. That shuffles them around for 7th and 8th in the other direction. This is the onboard looking over Brock's left shoulder. His dad Paul's here this weekend, keeping an eye on proceedings. And he's one of the 2 main game rookies in the field this weekend, although he's highly successful here last year in the Dunlop Super 2 Championship. So he's been exposed to the racetrack before, he knows it well, and he's doing a pretty fine job out there. So Van Gisbergen's just strolling along nicely at the moment, and Van Gisbergen, Di Pasquale and Randle all essentially pitted there or thereabouts at the same time, 28, 29 and lap 30. They all essentially took the same amount of fuel, but Randle's on a different tyre strategy there in that Castrol entry. Now they put a little bit more fuel in Chaz Mostert's car, and that'll serve him well, provided they've got a bit of car pace in the next stop. And keep a little bit of an eye on Cam Waters here as well, because that fresh air running for him has put him in good shape. Larko?
And it will do, Compo. So let's take the guesswork out of it. I've got my BP fuel card with me. It's got litres and seconds on it. I just had a look at Cam Waters. He's exactly 16.5 seconds. Come with me. Let's have a look. Car 11, Anton Di Pasquale. This is where the race is going to be. If we put it up here, he starts up here. He's got to come down to 140 litres. I can tell you he's exactly 19 seconds. Now I'm going to jump out the front here, and we'll come and have a quick look at Shane Van Gisbergen's. Exactly. If I put my little device up here, there's 140 litres. You can see yourself. What's that? 19.5 seconds. So, wow, there's nothing in this.
It's very tight. Thanks for the update, Mark Larkham. Teams will love you wandering in there and measuring what their fuel situation is to the millilitre. But we get great access and cooperation from the teams to do that, so that we can keep everybody at home informed about what's going on. Because we use a theory that's driven by computers and an engineer, question mark, where Larko has actually got the device that measures the amount of fuel.
Referring to our engineer and statistician in the commentary box with us, Oscar Fiorinato, who's a very clever man.
Here we go.
And you were being quite demeaning then, Neil.
I was just questioning that some of the data may not always be spot on. Look at this. Whoa! And Thomas Randle, though he was kind to his teammate, is not being kind at all here to Chaz Mostert. This is a little battle. And Chaz tries to sneak it down the inside, and this makes it the long way round at the next part of this racetrack. Gets it up and over the curb, and on it goes now when they get down to 7 and 8. So this will be testing the patience of Mostert, who'll be wanting to try and sneak on by. He's got to use all of his skill to try and round him up. And he does finally get it done down there at turn 10. Great exchange, but boy, that was tight when they came out of turn 3.
Thomas, who had that moment between turn 3 and turn 4 with Anton Di Pasquale. I think Craig Baird will go and have a little word with Thomas about that one later on today. Just moved it over in a straight line. Chaz just ran it into the last corner there a little bit too deep and didn't make the apex. Gave Thomas another look down the main straight here.
Pull down. Eyes forward.
That was Adam De Bore just talking to Chaz to say he got that pass made. Now let's get back into a rhythm.
So the margin Van Gisbergen to Waters is opening up. So remember we saw a little bit of a correction at the front of Cam's car in the pit stop. Here's the replay of the battle between these guys. So it went on all through 5, 6 and then 7, 8 and then eventually cleared him on the run through the right-hander at turn 10. But probably the best part of a third of a lap working away at that task before he actually was able to do it, Chaz Mostert. Here's our race leader, Shane Van Gisbergen, 3-second margin. So I was checking the margin between Shane and Cam because I wondered whether or not, once things settled down, whether Waters was on par pace-wise with Van Gisbergen, but that's not really been the case. So that's actually opening up now. It's now 8.1 seconds. And Waters on the last lap was the 5th fastest car. Let's have a look over Shane's shoulder now. This will tell us what this car's behaving like. So just enjoy this for 2.8 odd kilometres and we'll see what it's like. It's not a bad looking rocket out there at the moment, Shane Van Gisbergen's car. So he's got the lead of the race. When he comes in next time, he'll get onto the super soft tyre and he's got to put 72 litres of fuel on. We'll keep an eye on what the pace looks like for Anton Di Pasquale, who on the last lap did the same lap time. So maybe Waters just had a bad lap because on the last one for him, so 15.8 last lap for Shane, 15.9 last lap for Anton, 15.9 last lap for Waters and 15.7 for Mostert. So Cam might have made just a little error. Could have been traffic as well that might have also affected the cause. They're on board with the R&J Batteries entry of Heimgartner down the inside of Tim Slade at turn 2. So Andre's starting to make a bit of ground now. So he looks better on this set of tyres, doesn't he? Yeah. Or whether they made a change in the pit stop. But his race has come alive in the middle stint.
Just looking for pace there. Mostert was, as you said, the fastest car on the last lap. And Van Gisbergen was second fastest. There's a lot of radio chat about relative pace. So the really pivotal part of this phase of the race is again understanding how long the lead runners are going to stop for their next fuel top-up based on roughly 70 to 80 litres that's already been put on. They need to put 140 litres in. So basically a lot of them are they've done half the job. At the next stop, you've got to be in contention to go and challenge Van Gisbergen. So Di Pasquale is 3.5 seconds. So Randle just moves it over. Lets Courtney dive down the inside there. So Tickford have given Thomas there a directive just to let James by also. But 3.7 seconds to Anton Di Pasquale. A further 5.2 seconds, which almost makes a 9-second gap back to Waters. So we talk about how much fuel they've got to put on, but you've got to have a position for the next zone, the next phase of the race for how good the car's going to be when you put the super soft on. And when do you do it? How long can you make them run? And do you, from an undercut strategy perspective, put it on before Van Gisbergen and see whether that works for you? Because the only way they can do it now is you've got to pop Anton out in front of him.
Yeah, so there's only a couple of litres difference between the two of them at their first stop at the moment. So 68 litres taken on by Shane, 66 taken on by Anton. So it's going to be a little bit about how they balance up now on that super soft tyre. Mostert's got pace out there at the moment. He's starting to range up again to the back of Cam Waters. Yep. So last lap for him was a couple of tenths quicker than Cam. He did a 15.8, plays a 16 flat. This man on screen, 2 tenths faster than the car further up the road there, Cam Waters. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, remains with Thomas Randle on a 15.25, beg your pardon, a 14.25 on the super soft tyre. That could be under threat later in the race with some longer shadows and a cooler track as loads burn down and the track grips up. No bonus points for the fastest lap in these longer races.
So we're roughly halfway through, and there's a really good battle going on between Van Gisbergen, De Pasquale, Waters, Mostert. 4 different teams, 2 forwards, 2 holders, and there's only overall 11 seconds between them all with varying fuel loads.
.42 laps remain for the NTI Townsville 500. This is the 20th race of the 22 Repco Supercars Championship. 34 races now with another couple added for Adelaide at the back end of the year. That gets us to December. So we're deeply into the championship now. We've got a situation where Shane Van Gisbergen's got a 262-point championship lead, and he's got a 4-second lead in this race. But there's a bit of fuel correction to come in this at the second stop. There's a slight difference in fuel load between Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale. Waters took a bit more fuel than all of them in that last stop, but he's 9.5 seconds away from Van Gisbergen, but he's a little vulnerable at the moment in third position to Chaz Mostert, who's slowly been making very good ground in car number 25 in the Mobil 1 Optus Racing entry. So we know that he was very strong yesterday on the super soft tyre, Van Gisbergen. Now, I've been reliably informed that we're going to see a right-hand gear change again from Shane Van Gisbergen. He did that on Friday in practice, and we thought it was a rarity. Well, not now. We've seen it twice.
If we get another shot, as Jamie Whincup looks intently with Mark Dutton at the screen there and says to himself, why is he doing that with the right-hand gear change? But that's the way he operates inside the car. He's very good at doing other things. Now, what he does when he comes onto the straight, he puts his left foot onto the throttle and gives that right foot a little reprieve, which you would have done that at Bathurst. Did you do that at Bathurst?
No, but it's making my eyes cross in the commentary box, this description of crossing hands and feet.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Oh, didn't you? Okay, I used to always do that at Bathurst to give a right leg a little rest. But what he's doing, and he was doing it yesterday, you might see him do it when we come onto the straight. So he comes down, this is now turn 11, brakes it nicely, a couple of nice gear changes, uses the engine braking, nice modulation, very easy and smooth on the steering wheel, takes all the load off, uses all the road, balances it up, brakes it, turns it into the apex on the throttle gently. Nice gear changes, and he's just moved. So he was before moving his left foot over and using his left foot over on the throttle. Saw him do it earlier. He said to Jess and I yesterday that he was doing it through the race as the temperature come up.
And what he's trying to do at the moment is just relax himself, because gripping the steering wheel doesn't make the car any faster, but it does wear the driver out. And all that extra personal exertion, if you're squeezing everything's not a good thing. So he's finding a way to try and minimise the energy burn in the process to get to the end. He's also just tapping the brake pedal there to make sure that he had brake pressure on the run down the straight. Will Davison's been making progress. He's 15th now, by the way, having tangled with Scott Pye on lap 1 of the race. and punctured a tyre, ended up in the wall. We were worried about the geometry of the front of the car, but got away with it so far. And we thought that perhaps that front bumper assembly might have pushed onto the tyre after they departed from the pit lane, but it looked like all okay. Seen no further evidence of any troubles there. So he got tangled up out of turn 3, and this is what happened. There was a squeeze between Scott Pye and Will Davison coming out of turn 3 in the rush in the opening lap. Unfortunately for the Newline entry, damage, and that's put that car on the flatbed truck and taken that car out of contention again and sent it back into the pit lane. And the damage for Davison was such that the tyre went flat and he went sailing straight ahead into the tyre barrier on the right. Bang, there's pretty heavy contact with the Hino barrier on the left-hand side of the exit of turn 3. And then off he goes into the wilderness as a result of it. Luckily, those tyres out there did their job. But he's recovering. He's getting points out there at the moment. He's midfield in 15th. Heimgartner's having a good stint. We covered him off before on the last lap. It was a 16.3 for him, and he was the 4th fastest car out there. So have a look at the Petters Super Shock here doing its thing. And we said before that this is a racetrack that really knocks this gear around because of the requirement to make speed by leaping over the top of the curbs here. You really ask a lot of the damper and the spring. In fact, the entire driveline and all the suspension components get a real whack around here.
It's a great shot, isn't it? See that amount of force and the amount of curb usage. I'm with you. You think at the start where you're doing 250 kilometres around here, just smashing the cars across the curbs, that there'd be more failures. It's credit to everybody in terms of the teams, but also to the Petters Super Shock to survive and the torture.
I saw a document the other day about the service intervals. In fact, it was on this car, the service intervals on the dampers for the car. They're getting thousands of kilometres out of them, which pretty impressive performance. So well done to all involved in that process. So Heimgartner making solid work of it out there at the moment. He's up in 8th position and he's 27 seconds off the lead. And the lap that we just stayed with him there, he did a 16.4 and he was the 5th fastest car on the track. The quickest car was Shane Van Gisbergen. The 2nd quickest car was Anton De Pasquale. The 3rd quickest car was Waters. So the top players are all in order of lap speed at the moment. So Van Gisbergen, De Pasquale, Waters and Mostert were all 1, 2, 3 and 4 on that last lap mark. So we're seeing the sort order aligning with their car pace at the moment. And the margin between Van Gisbergen and Waters is out to 10.3 seconds. So he's consolidating a strong position at the moment. And in this stint of the race, Van Gisbergen, even on correction, is back in the box seat.
Yeah, so he's being told that, stabilised at 4 seconds. The only one that's out of kilter with everybody is Will Davison coming from the back of the field after that early drama. He was 5th fastest on the last lap, so he is actually using that pace to get through the field.
When I looked at the way the computer sorted them on the last lap, it didn't look right because it was basically in timing order. But that's what's going on. This last lap was a little bit slower for Mostert. It doesn't take much of a slip, a lock brake, trip over a curb or a little bit of traffic to drop you down the order for peak speed. Being consistent out there on a track like this is really hard. There's a very different flow requirement here to, for example, Mount Panorama, you know, where you really get a rhythm up and it's possible to continue to fire in very similar or the same lap time, lap after lap after lap. On a racetrack like this, it's much harder because of the amount of curb hopping and flying that you do. So you've only got to be misplacing the car by a millimetre or two, and it has a big impact on the stopwatch.
And a lot of the time we talk about how you get to the curb and how you ride the curb, but it's how well the car settles after it's been over the curb. So when it lands, how much turning have you had prior, what the angle of the car is when it does get back onto the deck, and then how much does it move around when it lands for you to be able to continue the rest of the corner. Take a sticky there. Now, putting some fresher rubber on the car.
So we're well past critical lap where you can fuel up and get home. But it's not governed so much by fuel, it's governed by what you want to do with tyres in the structure of this race. So we're coming up to the point where we know that you can safely do 30 laps, maybe even a smidge more in the final stint on a super soft tyre. So once we get around about lap 58 or thereabouts, 56, 7, 8, we'll start to see some action. But some people might be just, and that's what Adam was talking about, Adam DeBore on the start grid before when I was having the conversation with him. Sometimes you roll the dice, do it a couple of laps early and try and be a little brave. It didn't work for them yesterday. They ultimately hurt their tyre, but typically we've seen a few people get some gains out of that at different times because of the hardiness of that Dunlop Super Soft tyre. It's been pretty good and consistent and often much better in the degradation than we've been selling. Yeah. But the information that we got from Oscar earlier is that in today's race, that degradation's been a little poorer than yesterday. So that'll push that number back. You know, might make it 30 at best, might even be in the high 20s before you game to get onto the other tyre to sail home. So 35 laps remaining, 4.4 seconds is the gap. Van Gisbergen to De Pasquale. 13.9 seconds the spread across the top four. Van Gisbergen, De Pasquale, Waters and Mostert. Courtney lurking around in 5th position, having started in 5th position in car number 5. Yeah. Well, a fair bit of fiving going on there. And then Thomas Randle, this has been an excellent performance from him because, yeah, we understand why he shot through the field on the super soft tyre, but other than the fact that he's had to be courteous to his teammate and a couple of the other heavyweights have rounded him up in this stint, he's sitting on the hard tyre in genuine terms between Courtney and Feeney at the moment in 6th position. So that's been a really solid run for him in the mid-stint of the race. So well done, Thomas.
So I'm just looking at the fuel requirements for each of the competitors, and Van Gisbergen has got to put 19 seconds of fuel on. De Pasquale 20 seconds, Waters 17 seconds, and Mostert 17 seconds, Courtney 16.5 seconds. So there's a real game to be played here as to how early you're going to come in based on the amount of fuel time loss, and then trying to sort out what you think is the best policy around the tyre life for the last 34 laps. If you come in early, probably not really banking on making the super soft tyre last that long. But the other way around, if you come in late and put them on with, say, 25 laps remaining, you will have a serious pace advantage over someone who decides to do the undercut. So there's a range of options and some head scratching between engineers up and down pit lane as we speak, based on how long they've got to stop for and how early they may reach for the super soft tyre. How long can you make them last? The lap time difference will be massive when it happens. So they're doing low 16s now. We've already seen Thomas Randle do a 14.25. So there's roughly 2 seconds a lap is going to be the delta between cars on a hard tyre now and a soft tyre going on the car. So when you think about that number and you're starting to close into a range where you might contemplate putting them on, because we saw Slade do 30 laps yesterday. He's just starting down in the bunkers right now. They'll be going, okay, how are we going to go about this? Because remember, between the two leaders, there's almost nothing between them in terms of the fuel stop.
The two fellas that came to the weekend without a main game start are line astern here at the moment on screen. Thomas Randle in 6th, Brock Feeney in 7th position. Brock's been slowly getting closer to the back of Randle and maybe threatening that position at the moment. These fellas are about 25 seconds away from the lead at the moment. That margin first to second is 4.8 seconds. The gap from Van Gisbergen to Waters is 12.7 seconds. So this is a good solid outing for both these guys. You know, if you can be anywhere in that middle of the top 10 in your first forays at a complex racetrack like this, you know, I'd go away pretty happy with my day's work. 32 laps remain, NTI Townsville 500, Reed Park Circuit. Short version of a long story. Van Gisbergen is the leader by 4.8 seconds, and they're coming up to their second and final compulsory stop. And both Waters and Mostert need less fuel than the people in front, to the tune of, depending on who you look at here, either 2 or 3 seconds. So if you're Waters, he's about 3 seconds off. If you're Mostert, he's about 2 seconds better off. But Van Gisbergen's got time in hand. The question is, if you do blink early and come in and get on the super soft, do you claw a little bit back with the undercut? Is that going to be worth anything today? That's the executive summary of what's happening there at the moment.
And how long can you make them last? So all big lock-up. Big lock-up. Left-hand front here on board. Have a listen. Oh, and have a look at the smoke that used to come through the cabin. And then as he turned it at the corner, he knew the left-hand front was locked. He tried to minimise the brake lock and then run it sort of reasonably straight. And then the smoke that was apparent in the inside of the cab. They repairs helmet cam in the middle of the Boost Mobile pit stop. That's for Will Brown. Will's currently down in 23rd. He has now motored back out, and he's just near Heimgartner. To your point, Heimgartner, his pace is excellent. He was 4th fastest again on that last lap, so he's actually doing numbers. His lap speed, other than the front guys, is actually the next car. He's actually going faster than what Waters and Mostert. So he's really, other than Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale, Heimgartner is now the next fastest car on the track.
Starting to see people reacting now for the final pit stop. Slade, Kostecki, LeBrock in. Heimgartner, as Mark pointed out, has got good pace. We're watching the key runners to see who does what when. 31 laps remain. We're inside the window to get onto the super soft tyre. The super soft tyre's got the blue sidewall on it. There it is. We've got a problem with the left front here. No, they've sorted it.
Covered by fuel.
I was about to say they're probably sorted by fuel. Actually, no, they weren't. The front left actually held them up in the stop there. 4.8 seconds margin, Van Gisbergen to De Pasquale. And not a lot. There's about a second difference in their refuel time. There's not even quite that between Shane and Anton De Pasquale. So this looks like a lively group.
Randle's done well to hold off Feeney because Brock was coming at him quite aggressively, and Thomas has been able to respond there in terms of pace. So, in fact, Randle on the last lap was the 5th fastest car.
He's got a lot of pressure on him at the moment, so it's a busy back end of the race for him. We've also had word through from Brad Jones Racing that Macaulay Jones got a broken anti-roll bar in the Pizza Hut entry as well. That wouldn't be nice around here because it's a track where you're rocking the car constantly, so the anti-roll bar control, once broken, would be making that car very awkward to drive.
It would, but based on smashing over one-wheel bumps, it might actually be a relief. It might feel like a Calais. It would actually feel like a nice riding thing at the moment.
Down the inside comes Brodie on Brock, and teammate Will Brown here as well. Now, James Courtney and Andre Heimgartner in. 29 laps remaining for those guys. They're about to get onto the super soft tyre. See whether they get some benefit from the undercut.
The number that we're really looking at is the gap between Shane Van Gisbergen and Anton De Pasquale. It's 4.5 seconds.
Front are done, waiting for rear. Still waiting for one more. Yep, going to be clear when we drop here, JC. We're waiting for fuel now, not far away. Still clear when we drop. Go, 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 go. Don't stop.
So a savage bite out of the back of that car of Andre's as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So Pither in the background has also come in the Coca-Cola entry. 28 laps remaining, and Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale have continued, so they're all just going to keep on trundling down the road to shorten up the requirement on the super soft tyre. Feeney having a look down the inside and touching Randle. Now he's got to be careful here. If it's a bump and run, that won't work. And Randle actually grabbed the brake. Oh, because he's coming in. Yeah, he grabbed the brake because he got the call to come in. So that maybe cost him a second, that little manoeuvre. bit weird for him to check up and grab the brake, and then he crossed over and back into the lane. Here comes Waters, Mostert, Randle now in.
Waters with 16.5 seconds of fuel to put on.
And the hope for him is that getting onto those tyres earlier than Van Gisbergen can claw back some of the lost margin.
On exit. We're getting ready to go. Almost there. Almost there. Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go.
And that monster Mustang will feel like a jet when he drives it out, based on the tyre quality that he's just taken off and what he's put on.
There's nothing like a grip birthday in a racing car.
Exactly.
Van Gisbergen's in. The race leader's come in. He's got a 4.4 second lead over Anton De Pasquale, and Anton has mirrored him, so they're both in together. That'll leave Feeney briefly in the lead. Here he is.
And that's a good decision by Shell V-Power, because you do not want him to get the benefit of the undercut on you.
One more, swing around, drive through.
Nice cooperation between the teams there. They're able to drive through the Anton De Pasquale or Shell V-Power pit. That wouldn't have happened in our day. Would have had to make you drive around it, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Okay, tyres are done. You're going to be good to go. Getting close here, mate. 3 seconds there now, mate. Go.
There was about a half-second on advantage in favour of Shane coming into that stop. Relative fuel delivery required, and you can see that that margin's opened up slightly back. It was 4.4 seconds when they came in between Van Gisbergen and Anton De Pasquale. Now, lurking in amongst all of this now also is the recovering Will Davison. And he's mixed up out there with Todd Hazelwood in the truck assist entry, who's just covering on the run to the right-hander at turn 3. And Mark Winterbottom in behind. Now, Bryce Ford and Macaulay Jones are in the pit lane as well. So Brock Feeney's actually leading the race now. He's still got to do his second compulsory stop from Nick Percat. A fair chunk of the field now starting to cycle in, and very shortly we'll have the final blast to the checkered flag with everybody fueled and tired to the end.
Tired to the end, all right. They'll be tied to the end right now after 500k of racing.
Percat being passed by Shane Van Gisbergen, and they're pitting Will Davison now as well. Heard that in the background, and I can see them getting ready for Brock Feeney. So Feeney in, Macaulay Jones in. In fact, Macaulay's just departing the pit lane now, and you're going to see Will Davison in a heartbeat.
That gap that was 4.5 coming in is now exactly 5 seconds between Van Gisbergen and Anton De Pasquale.
And the reason for the extra half second is fuel. So they had to put more fuel in Anton's car. It wasn't necessarily a slow stop.
Get ready. Make sure you got first. 2 more seconds. Go.
Hard tyres off. Super soft tyres on.
How's the left-hand side of Will's car there? That's all that damage from the tyre wall at turn 3 on the opening lap.
Go.
Serious gravel rash down that left-hand side.
Rear bar to 14. We're going to have cars on exit. Rear bar to 14.
This is going to be a sprint race.
He is making ground, Will, but he's going to be frustrated when he parks up at the end of this one. So we've ended up being out of business effectively on the opening lap. So he's popped out there with Will Brown. And Will's trying to, and Will effectively crisscrossing Will Brown, that is. Too many Wills. And Hazelwood now in together with Mark Winterbottom.
Yeah, I just heard something over the radio from Shane Van Gisbergen about saying no water. So just trying to follow up a little bit on that. It's not the sort of day that you want to finish 500 k's of racing without being hydrated properly. David Reynolds is on for a very good lap at the moment. So there's going to be real pace now. 25 laps remaining. This is an absolute sprint race. The very best drivers on the softest tyre that Dunlop produce. And an absolute head-to-head battle between Holden and Ford with Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale. Just in behind that is Cam Waters and Chaz Mostert.
So Waters to Van Gisbergen, which is the gap that I've been monitoring, is 9.7 seconds. So he has received some small benefit from the fact that they took a smaller fuel dose in their second stop, a shorter stop for them, and perhaps a little undercut benefit on the tyre as well. Davison now gets back that manoeuvre that Will Brown put on him just recently. And the fastest lap of the race still for the moment is Thomas Randle, but we might see a bit of action in that regard shortly. Nick Percat now also coming in. So
what's really interesting is De Pasquale has taken that gap that was 5 seconds. It's now 2.5, 2.6. So you can see it there right now. So did Anton get a little benefit with some traffic on the way out? I don't know what the real effect of that was, but there's definitely halved that gap after the stop. It was 5 seconds.
A safety car would spice things up nicely right about now.
Massively.
And, you know, from all the strategic games that have been played to this point,
3 seconds to go.
it'd neutralise everything.
All clear. Go, go, go.
2.5 second gap between Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale. 8.9 seconds the spread between Van Gisbergen and Waters. It sort of tells me that both Anton and Cam are actually taking a bit of ground out of Shane. But we've been tantalised by this before, and you've got to be a little bit careful that we're not getting excited about them chewing too much of the tyre too soon, and then Shane responds a little bit later in the sequence with the knockout punch.
So one of the telling factors is how hard you use the soft tyre immediately. So when you put that tyre on and you're pressing on straight away, Van Gisbergen has been very good and very measured with how hard he drives the car until it builds up pressure and temperature. And we've seen that gap evaporate from 5 seconds to 2.5. So Anton's certainly been able to make gains, just need to be careful. And there's the numbers for you. So just on 2 laps alone there, 1.3 and 0.7, there's 2 seconds straight away in that last 4 laps. So that tells the story. What doesn't tell the necessary story is, does it knock that tyre around, and therefore the longevity of the super soft tyre is impaired versus Van Gisbergen.
Now, Will Davison's gone out there on fresh boots and just done a 13.7 to lower the fastest lap of the race. No bonus points in that, but they just reported on the radio to him, so that's an encouraging bit of pace for him. And we're watching Van Gisbergen, whose lead's diminishing slightly, so it's a 2-second margin now, and the spread first to third is 7.4 seconds. It's about to be 22 laps remaining. And
15.9, 15.9, 49.9.
And on that last lap for Waters, it was the fastest first sector in the race. So the splits across the racetrack, Cam Waters quicker in the first sector, David Reynolds fastest in the mid sector, and Will Davison fastest in the third sector. So the interesting thing for me there's no Van Gisbergen in those columns, and yet he leads the race by 2 seconds at the moment and has had command of it for quite some time. How's these fellas? They're magnets. They just keep finding each other event after event after event. They were teammates, had some well-publicised clashes. Sometimes they've been frenemies. So Waters and Mostert third and fourth, but they are very strong competitors, and they'll be enjoying the hand-to-hand combat that's unfolding here at the moment. And if anything, I think Chaz, just in this last lap even, has made a little bit of ground again. Right with him in the braking area into turn 11. So this is a threat, big threat. So he's made huge ground just in the last couple of 100 metres. He's making an enormous amount of ground on him. And there's nothing like seeing those taillights in front getting bigger to find a 100th here and there. So in fact, he's starting to search high and low in the final corner for a
Still
place.
a long way to go. Still a long way to go. D-Mac currently lapping around 15.2. Keep it around that 15 for me. And manage to get Chaz.
Here we go, Mostert, and he gets chased to the inside of the road. They're on the dirty stuff there. This is awkward, and now a crossover. So Mostert having a huge crack. Chaz Mostert having a throw down the inside, and he's bowled a nice one down there to get the job done. So Mostert moves it up into third position. And Will Davison, meanwhile, back in the midfield at the moment, is going very, very quickly. But all of a sudden, great pace from Chaz Mostert with an authoritative move straight down the inside there, and he's cracking on some pace.
That was very nicely done, Chaz Mostert. Pretty lively moment at the end of the main straight. Fired into turn 2, trying to do the crisscross. He was able to get it done between 2 and 3. So Mostert being aggressive and assertive. Good to see him when he's in that mood. What I'm concerned about is that De Pasquale, Mostert and Waters are all driving the cars so hard they've been able to drag that gap back to 1.8 seconds. Let's have a look at this now. This is what you were talking about, Neil. Straight down the inside, Mostert on the dirty side of the road, gets it stopped. Has allowed a little bit of room there by Cam. He didn't turn down on him. This was the piece here at turn 2. This is how it started. There was a little bit of contact on the way out of turn 2. And then Chaz parks himself down the inside. Beautifully done. Fires it across the curb. And is able to pop the Optus Commodore up the road on Cam Waters.
They would have enjoyed that in the garage at WAU. So good pace when it matters most at the back end of the race, so well done. Now, meantime, Will Davison continues to climb through the field, and we're looking at the overhead here in a great exchange between Reynolds and Heimgartner, and it's ongoing as they make their run up towards turn 3, and the Kiwi down the inside on the R&J Batteries entry, and a bounce back by Reynolds up on the outside. Puts you on the wrong side of the road when you get to the left-hander down here, but he might sweep down. Does he get it done on the dirty side of the road? David Reynolds does.
Well done. Nice driving, both of them. We saw Brodie Kostecki put that move on yesterday around the outside, so that must get more and more grip through the course of the weekend. He wouldn't normally be able to do that, but he got away with it, David Reynolds. Well done. So what I was trying to tell, a very prolonged story about Neil, was that Van Gisbergen has not used the tyre up at all since the stop. He's been very, very measured. He will whack them at the end based on everybody using them so hard.
This has been a fine comeback for Will Davison, sitting in 11th position, fastest lap of the race, 39.8 seconds, in fact, off the lead, and continuing to close up. So he is now not terribly far away from the back of Jack LeBrock. You can see the truck assist car just off on the right-hand side of screen. 1.6 seconds, Van Gisbergen to De Pasquale. Is it a false dawn, or are they getting closer? De Pasquale, Mostert and Waters. Van Gisbergen's been very cagey traditionally in the way he's used the tyres and the way he's preserved the tyres and what he's had up his sleeve for the back end of these races. We've got 19 laps to go, but it is tightening up at the top end of town at the moment. There he is.
So how close does he let him come in? Garth Tanner will have a view on this. So will Mark Larkin. How close do you reckon, boys? Will Shane allow Anton to get before he puts some better pace on again?
Well, Scafie, let's have a quick look at the gap to leader. Here's Shane blazing along. This was his pit stop. When we turn Anton De Pasquale on, right, we know he's coming at him. That's obvious. But here's the giveaway. I reckon you're right. I reckon Shane might be toying with him, because when I have a look at Mostert and Courtney and a few others, not right now, they've just gone down now, but they've all been coming at him. The fact that they've all been coming at him says to me he's just measuring his drive right now. Expect to see a bit more of that, where he's going to blaze away.
We've heard Shane talk about letting the driver behind come up to the rear bumper of the Red Bull Commodore and then overheating the front tyre of the car following. I feel like Shane's playing that game right now. He's not having to use the tyre. He's got the track position. He did all that work in the second stint. That's brought him the luxury of being able to drive the car casually right now. He'll have plenty up his sleeve if he needs it.
But you can't afford to let too much margin disappear, and then all of a sudden something else like traffic gets in the way, and he's starting to deal with that, Shane Van Gisbergen. He's got Macaulay Jones with a broken anti-roll bar, who I think is going to get a blue flag in order to be able to let Shane rock on by. And of course, if you have a safety car, things could get lively as well. But if Shane hasn't taken too much energy from the tyre, that'll play to him. You can see the gap. It's 2.5 seconds, Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale.
There's the foot. He's very good, isn't he? He's changing gears with different hands. He's changing his foot from one side to the other. He's obviously a remarkably talented person in the car. He's got a very high racing IQ.
Now, Will Davison's made his way into the top 10.
Great
and
drive.
when you consider that he was sitting in the tyre barrier on lap 1, that is a fine drive.
Yep.
So he's now 38.5 seconds from the lead. He's between Tim Slade and Jack LeBrock. He's cleared LeBrock, and he continues to trundle along very quickly. He was the second fastest race car on the track, so it'll be a tale of lost opportunity for Will Davison this afternoon. But you've got to commend the drive and the tenacity to be able to press on and do what he's doing at the moment. And it's not impossible that he won't get some more on the journey. It's still a chunky amount of race to come. 17 laps remain. And this car clearly well matched to the road. Good enough yesterday to get on the podium in position number 2. And he's driving it super well.
It's probably robbed us a little bit because I think his pace is better than Di Pasquale's. So if you think about what the race could have been or should have been, Davison yesterday was, remember, a great battle yesterday with Shane, wasn't it? So he's shown again that he's had the ability to drive the car very fast on both compounds, and to come from the back of the field and get to where he is. I'm 100% with you, Croppo. It's a great drive, great performance. But if he was at the front of the field the whole time, maybe a different complexion with Van Gisbergen today.
And Brock Feeney's worth a shout out as well, because yesterday finished in 7th position. He's currently in 6th, so he's on target to complete the weekend with 2 solid top 10 finishes and in the mid top 10. So he'll take a decent points yield out of this, and a nice turnaround for James Courtney so far as well, when you stop and consider where he's sitting at the moment, Mark, in 5th position. So yesterday was a ropey run for him. He was down in 20th position at the end of it all, so that's a nice solid recovery for him. He's getting closer to the back of Slade. That blue Cool Drive car is getting closer. Isn't this a great sight? Seeing so many of our supercar fans out there enjoying the sunshine. Beautiful day in North Queensland. Top temperature prediction was 23 degrees, and we reached just slightly over that a little earlier in the race. We've had 2 fine days of beautiful racing conditions up here, and lots and lots of people have travelled from within Queensland and from interstate to come and enjoy the supercars again this weekend. And of course, in the last several years, throughout the difficult period in the pandemic, Townsville and the Queensland government, together with supercars, actually put a big effort in to keep the circus rolling through that difficult period. So this is one of the locations where the momentum continued. We didn't stop racing here. In fact, we added some racing. And if you're going to go racing somewhere, this is a nice place to do it.
It certainly is. Further to your comments there, everybody from Tourism and Events Queensland, from Townsville City Council, especially the Mayor, Jenny Hill, she loves her car racing, and that's, as you said, perfect for our business to be here. And on behalf of everybody at Supercars, thank you so much for all the effort. This is one of our better events. It's a signature event on our calendar.
Will Davison now attacking Tim Slade. This could get him to 9th position if it works. Chances are that he'll have a go down in the braking area at turn 11, and then it's not terribly far up the road to Andre Heimgartner, so the march continues for him. This is a lesson in never give up.
Yep.
And Will Davison is not giving up, and he's got good pace here. Can he offer up something under brakes? There's space, and he uses it wisely. So that's Will Davison now up 1 more spot on Tim Slade. Tim just grabs 3rd gear for the short shift there to just be able to deal with it a bit earlier. In fact, it might have been 1st to 2nd there. So off he goes, and now that means that Davison's only 2 seconds away from Heimgartner. So the word's going out to Will Davison where he sits in the race, and he'll be starting to brush off the pain that he was feeling early on as he starts to knock him down towards the end of the race. So his margin to the lead, 36 seconds. But there's a chunk of people just within his target zone at the moment. Heimgartner, Reynolds, maybe less so Feeney. That might be a much bigger ask in 6th. But not impossible that Will Davison could get to David or Andre in the back end of this race. And we're just confirming his fastest lap on the graphic for you there. Unfortunately, there's no extra bonus for that today.
No.
He picked the wrong weekend to do the fastest lap.
Yeah, you're normally getting the bonus points for the sprint races, but under this 500k format for the weekend, same policy doesn't apply. On board now with Shane Van Gisbergen, who, if you just listen carefully on the way out of the corner and the way that he treats the steering and the modulation, the technique he uses around the progression of throttle, so beautiful and smooth.
Now, the last lap, he was 0.4 quicker, Shane, than Anton. So he's got some traffic to deal with here. It's car number 22 that he's following, and that's Chris Pither. And look at Will having a crack now at Heingartner. He's going to make a run down into turn 2 here. He's got the headlight on. One of them's a bit cockeyed on the right front corner. It's a bit cross-eyed from the contact earlier on, but it's enough to let everybody know that he's there. So that's another good, clean move. Moves him up into 8th position, Will Davison. More valuable points, and he might get to David Reynolds. You saw a glimpse of the Penrite car just in the distance there. So it's now 3.3 seconds, the gap, Van Gisbergen to De Pasquale. So now we're seeing the response. So on that last lap, I was watching carefully when they crossed the line. That margin swung the other way. So Shane has just dangled the carrot. They've all responded. They've all gone rushing up. And then he snatched the toys back off the top of the table. No thanks.
Yeah, so 3rd fastest car, Van Gisbergen on the last lap. De Pasquale 17th fastest car. So there's a lot of radio chat between the two organisations about how hard respective teams were pushing at the start of the stint, the final stint here. James Courtney's made ground on Waters, hasn't he?
He has, and Lee Holdsworth, that's mixed into this, is actually out of sequence. He's down in 22nd position at the moment. He's 1 lap off the money. Oh, Chaz Mostert doing some rally work on the exit of turn 6. So he's still pressing on pretty hard there at the moment. He's 8.3 off the lead. He's 4.9 from Anton, but he's hustling away from Waters. It's a 1.4 second margin. You can see them in the background. But the question now is, does Courtney have anything for Cam Waters, his teammate? And how do they deal with Lee there at the moment? So that's a tricky one for them, because he's showing pace, but he's out of sequence.
Buddy, off to go. Hold the informant in the map.
And he fires down the inside there in a pretty easy manoeuvre at turn 13, but that's costing Cam Waters time at the moment.
Well, he's now back in behind him, isn't he? So yeah. Cam's having to race him.
There. And he's down in 22nd position, 1.1 laps off the money from Van Gisbergen, whose margin's now at 3.6 seconds.
Teams, bad sportsmanship flag to car 10, disobeying blue flag light.
Okay, so Lee Holdsworth has now been warned on the race management channel from the race director in the background that the bad sportsmanship flag is being shown for ignoring the blue flag.
What's happened to Anton De Pasquale? He's come down the field massively.
Ooh.
There's something going on with Anton De Pasquale. Oh, it was just our timing. He was all of a sudden down in 5th or 6th on our timing there for a second. I don't know what happened just then. There was a mad glitch.
We all had a jump in heart rate because all of a sudden his name started to tumble down the order, and then it shot back up again.
Phew.
They would have all jumped to attention in the Shell V-Power garage as well. But there he is. So Chris Pither is the meat in the sandwich there with car number 22. Van Gisbergen and De Pasquale, 3.4 seconds. The lap speed check last lap mark 15.6, 1 minute 15.6 for Shane versus a 1 minute 15.5 for Anton De Pasquale. Mostert, though, a 15.4. He's still charging very hard out there at the moment. The quickest car of the top half dozen gang on that last lap was actually Brock Feeney. He did a 15.3.
Okay,
and there's Will Davison, who's just been able to grab David Reynolds. So to come from an absolute dead last, absolute dead last after lap 1, to get back to 7th position is a really, really accomplished drive and strategy from the team and from Will. Great performance.
You got to hand it to him. That's a great job. And then I wouldn't have thought he'd get back as far as he has. Having been on the podium yesterday, he's still 35 seconds from the lead behind Shane Van Gisbergen. He's 12 seconds away now from Brock Feeney. But these are solid points and a nice recovery from what could have been an absolute shocker.
All teams, black flag, drive-through penalty, car 10, disobeying black flags.
James Taylor, our race director. That's a shot of James on the right-hand side of screen in Motorsport Australia Race Control. They're black flagging, Lee, so there must be a comms issue. Some strange reason.
Hold on, hold
why he's not responding to the blue flags.
And that's the internal system this weekend.
Yeah.
So he's getting that on the dash, but he's been obviously warned for it and then hasn't moved it away. Garth?
Well, I wandered down to the Tickfoot garage to ask Tim Edwards what he was going to do about his two boys, Cam Waters and James Courtney, but then this Lee Holdsworth thing's popped up. Tim, what do you think about all that?
Well, he's an imbecile. I mean, seriously, you know, he's not in this race. He's in 22nd place, and all he's doing is just compromising it. It's not like he's going to unlap himself. If he was in that position, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, he got what he deserved.
Okay, let's now talk about Cam Waters and James Courtney. Any team orders there, or are they free to race?
No, I mean, look, Cam's just managing his tyre. I mean, his plan was he was going to sit on Chaz's bumper, and it obviously got interrupted a little bit, so he's got to claw back a little bit, but I think his plan is, you know, and he's not telling me this, I'm speculating. I think his plan is he was planning to have a crack, you know, in the last 5 laps of the race.
Thanks for the speculation. Cheers, Tim.
No worries.
Just had a quick chat with David Coucher, who's engineering Lee Holdsworth this weekend. No comms issue. Lee was aware of the black flag, but their argument was that he was faster at the time. So, yeah, a bit of a messy one then.
Yeah, that one doesn't stand up when the race leaders are doing their thing, and that's the reason why they've reacted in race control. So he's unfortunately paid a penalty there. He was 22nd in the middle of the battle between Waters and Courtney. So that's now been resolved. And unfortunately, they didn't heed the warning.
De Pasquale last lap 14.8, Van Gisbergen 15.5. Fastest car on the track, De Pasquale. So he stored something up with 8 laps remaining to have a last surge at Van Gisbergen. That's a big gap. That's 0.7 of a second difference between those two cars on the lap prior.
It's a great job, and that's a big chunk of speed when everybody, like every other single car around him at the moment, is jammed on a mid-15. They all look like they're doing exactly the same lap time, but De Pasquale found a pile of time there. So it's not quite done yet. Is Van Gisbergen going to hold on? Can De Pasquale pick up consecutive weekend wins because he was a winner in Darwin last time out? Look at that crazy tight margin at the end of it. We're all craving combat between the two of them. For Red Bull, they don't want any action at all. They want another 150 points and a nice cruisy afternoon. For the Shell V-Power Racing team, they're very keen to get another win going here. And we, as motorsport fans, are hungry for some action if these guys can get it together and make these last 7 laps lively. So we've got a 2.2 second margin, and things have smartened up. Now, when you stop and think about that time that you spoke about, Mark, in a high 14, the best lap of the race for De Pasquale was a 14.6.
Yeah.
So the variation between his peak speed and the speed that he just achieved on the last lap is very, very close, only 0.3 of a second different. So he's been able to find remarkable speed. We'll check that now on this lap and see what it actually translates into. More shadows out there, as you can well see. There's the gap. And I'll check it out. 14.9 for Van Gisbergen. He's responded with a 14 and a 14.8 for De Pasquale. And the margin is 2.22 seconds. So these guys are into it. We are in qualifying mode at the back end now of this race. So Van Gisbergen wakes up to the threat as well.
So their fastest laps between the two of them, a 14.62 for Van Gisbergen, a 14.62 for De Pasquale. That's their fastest laps. Have a look at Will Davison's fastest lap in comparison, a 13.76. He smashed them by 9/10.
There's big lap. So there's some wry smiles in the garage in the Shell V-Power Racing team as they contemplate what might be. That's Ben Croak leaning against the back wall, keeping an eye on things there at the moment. We pick up with Anton. There's the margin to the leader. It's still jammed on 2.2 seconds. Will Davison in 7th place. Huge recovery in car number 17, but he's 12.8 seconds from Brock Feeney. I don't think he's going to make much more ground. And here we go. This little battle's yet to resolve as well because Mostert may have burnt the penny a little earlier. Now, should I say, Cam Waters comes down the inside on the dirty track, and Mostert might get caught out here. Oh, there's contact between the two of them again. They make the run to the final corner. Side by side, Mostert and Waters, nothing in it. Cam just sits it up high for a moment, tries to tuck down and come out the other side with the crisscross. Hangs on for a little bit longer.
This is on down here in the braking area. because Cam's just trying to position himself in a way that he can fire that Mustang down the inside, and he has a big, big, bold lunge. Is he too fast? Can he get it stopped? He does, but the crisscross is on, so Chaz, no, he can't. I thought Chaz was going to fire back to the right-hand side and get down there. He's not able to do it. Great racing between these two blokes.
Tiny little bit of contact on the run into turn 3.
Mate, love your work.
So Waters and Mostert. Heavy-duty combat between them again. Mostert has just started to, I would suggest, hurt those tyres a little and is vulnerable now to James Courtney. So Courtney aiming up in the background, and not very far from these guys, you can see Feeney. Through the right-hander at turn 10. Courtney has a think about whether or not he can get down the inside here at turn 11. So he's well in the game here as well. And you heard Tim Edwards say that the teammates at Tickford are free to race, just not too vigorously. But a fantastic battle between Waters and Mostert. James is able to turn in a better position there than Chaz, and so he'll be vulnerable again down the end of the straight. So watch for Courtney to have a crack down here on the brakes in turn 2.
Just lost a bit of ground there. Drive traction on Mostert. Don't know whether he's close enough. He's trying to force his way through, but he's run too deep. So that's what I was worried about with Cam Waters when he tried the same manoeuvre last time. Tim there having a little wry smile at the dive that James was trying to effect on Chaz Mostert. Come from a fair way back. He was about 3 car lengths, I reckon. At least 2 car lengths, so it's probably a little bit too bold.
Meantime, Di Pasquale continues to take a little bit of time out of Van Gisbergen. It's down to 1.7 seconds while we've been distracted, keeping an eye on this little battle that's raging for the minors. This is for the last spot on the podium, the Waters-Mostert-Courtney battle. However, Van Gisbergen continues to be under pressure here at the moment. And the reason for that, in the foreground, you can see Will Brown. There's the fellow challenging for second. And it's now 1.4 seconds. Brown sidesteps to get out of the way, let the leaders do their thing. He gives him the wave by. So Van Gisbergen clears him. 3 to go. 1.4 seconds. Di Pasquale gives it everything. Shane had the rear brakes locked on the run into turn 2 there. He is not messing about. He's got a qualifying pace going at the moment, trying to fend off this challenge from Di Pasquale.
Nice job by Will to move it out of the way there. Will Brown just moved, let both parties straight through.
1.3 seconds is the gap as the Shell V-Power racing car gets a little bit closer to the back of the Red Bull Ampol racer. Has he got enough in reserve? Are we going to have a grandstand finish? 3rd gear, 4th gear, through the right-hander down here through turn 10. He's closer again, 1.2 seconds. He's peeling tenths away when it matters. Is he going to be able to have a crack here? This is starting to liven up. This is what we all want to see. Into the final corner. Di Pasquale incentivized. Is the situation that Van Gisbergen is going to need to start to move defensive.
2 to go.
1 second is the gap with 2 to go. So there's a little over 4 kilometres of racing to come. The shadows are long in Townsville. 0.8 of a second. This is real.
Yep.
This is real. Di Pasquale is throwing a big punch at Van Gisbergen, and there's nothing in this for the final 2 laps.
He is pressing on hard. 0.7 of a second now. Fastest car on the track last lap, Anton Di Pasquale. He's throwing everything at it. This Shell V-Power Mustang is being thrown around as hard as you can possibly drive it right now. These are qualifying laps on this tyre.
0.6 of a second, and close enough now to be a major threat as they make their run down towards turn 11. So Anton Di Pasquale getting very, very close to the back of Shane Van Gisbergen, who appears to be just a little bit vulnerable at the back end. We saw a couple of shots before at the rear of that car starting to skate around just a fraction, and it's car number 55, Thomas Randle, in the foreground here in the Castrol entry, that got off to such a ripping start early on. Now the cars are all but line astern as we approach the last lap.
He's on hard. 1 more to go. 1 more.
Last lap. 2.8 kilometres of racing to come on the streets of Townsville. Randle gets out of the way. Van Gisbergen is our leader. That's officially half a second, and once again he glides it in on the rear, Van Gisbergen. This means that Di Pasquale is fully incentivised. He gets the best seat in the house to look at the back of the Commodore, and he is now so close that he could be a threat when they get to turn 11.
Top left-hand side of your screen, James Courtney's been able to get by Mostert also. Here we go. This is where the Mustang has been so fast all weekend. He makes a bit of ground on Van Gisbergen. But the next section of road is where Shane has been absolutely at his best. The car rides the bump so nicely, slides it over Boundary Street. The big bump, 180 kilometres an hour, up to 210k. Can he dive it down the inside? He's got 2 more corners after this one. This is turn 11.
Everybody sidestepping, and Di Pasquale gets so close. They're 1 corner from home. He has a sniff at the gap. They're going to hit, and he's turned him. He's turned him at the last corner. Unbelievable. Van Gisbergen's been turned around at the last corner by Di Pasquale, and he checks up. He checks up. He's going to give it back to him.
No, he didn't let him redress. So he was going to redress, but he didn't let him. Shane stayed there and let him go by first, so he'll get a penalty as a consequence. They're playing the judicial game.
Wow. What a conclusion. Well, it's pretty clear what's going to happen there. So what a conclusion. Tagged at the last corner. And then I thought that Anton was going to give it back, and then they all checked up and dribbled across the line. Meantime, Waters gets on the podium after a vigorous battle with Courtney. We saw that it was going to liven up at the back end of the race. Here we go. Here's the penalty.
Teams 5-second time penalty to car 11, driving infringement.
James Taylor, race director, umpire, makes the call. Advice from the driving standards advisor.
All good. All done.
Almost puts it back to Waters.
That's deliberate.
Yeah, exactly. But that just shows you how close it is.
Look at this on the replay. He threw everything at it, Di Pasquale. It was a do-or-die move. Bang! Gets him in the left rear corner. They would have locked eyes at that point in the cockpit of the car, and it would be a ferocious exchange. Bang! Get that into you. So around goes Shane. Right now, Di Pasquale's thinking, what do I do? Do I back it off and roll to the line? And then the confusion at the line, and in the end, the umpire sorted it out, and a good call.
So here's the interesting one. He goes to redress. Shane doesn't allow him to redress. So he purposely parks it behind him so that you do incur the penalty.
There's been a bit of tension between these guys, and it's been starting to brew in the recent past, but Van Gisbergen gets the job done. So we didn't get to call 2 from 2 across the line. We were busy having heart failure based on what was going on. But Van Gisbergen gets a double dose of points here this weekend. 300-point weekend for him. And a monstrous burnout. Some of that would have been coming from his ears at the final corner.
Yes, the reaction would have been pretty volatile as he was being rotated. But you've got to give it to Anton. You've got to have a major crack. He had an absolute crack at it.
Everybody's been saying, offer up some fierce resistance. That's about as fierce as it gets.
Yep.
So Van Gisbergen gets the job done in the weirdest of conclusions in Townsville. Van Gisbergen, 4.4 seconds because of the penalty correction for Anton Di Pasquale. It didn't change what was going to happen further down the order, so they slotted him in with the penalty so that he was second. Waters in third, Courtney and beyond. So now the next page of competitors. Reynolds, Percat, actually decent recovery. Didn't get much of an opportunity to talk up his stocks today because he was struggling earlier in the day.